if you could impact 1 billion people's lives in the next 5 years, what would you do? And it stunned me. I had never let myself consider that depth of a question before. And almost immediately it came to me, well, we'll just solve this issue of mercury. We'll find a way, because obviously we have the technology to do virtually anything, and we have the funding. It's amazing funds that are flowing now. And what we need really is just the will. So I said, I'm doing that. And I took that on and started Mercury Free Mining in 2017. Went public, went through the HeroX platform that also is a part of, I think, the X Prize Foundation's kind of a branch of that, and announced that we, Mercury Free Mining, was going to raise $1 million prize to fund the most effective technology that could be discovered. And we launched into that. It was like, I don't know where to go from here. I've been a bench jeweler, but there's something that can happen just out of one's commitment, one's vision, and just sharing that possibility.
You're listening to Catalyst Talks, conversations with change agents, outliers, superheroes, and truly conscious leaders modeling what it is to be an unstoppable force for good and truth in this world. What lit these catalysts on fire to do their work, and what nuggets of wisdom can they share with a world literally on fire? I'm your host, Stephanie Trager. I'm a transformational catalyst and life coach to maverick change agents in business, leadership, and life. On this podcast, I wear an eclectic mix of hats, including Earthkeeper, Wayfinder, Truth Teller, coach, lawyer, business, and impact strategist. My intention is holding space for higher purpose, peak wellness, soul mastery, and deeper impact so we can live in harmony with ourselves, each other, and nature. Please subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen. If you love it, please share and spread the word. We're on YouTube and all the podcast platforms. See the show notes on catalysttalks.com for links, and enjoy this episode. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Catalyst Talks. Toby, it's great to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
You are so welcome. It's my pleasure, my honor, my delight. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah. So Toby, you're a designer, a goldsmith for over 50 years, right? And in 2017, you founded Mercury Free Mining to support small scale artisanal gold miners to create healthy lives and livelihoods without the use of toxic mercury. And it's really an honor to be with you because your tenacity, your passion, you inspire me. And I know we're going to inspire all listeners. And that's just my dog shaking off because he's like, yeah, I'm ready to. So my goal with this podcast and with sharing people like you with our audience is to inspire others to catalyze change and at scale, just like you're doing. So I had the immense gift to support you in our work together in the early stages of Mercury Free Mining. And yeah, it's just been really mind-blowing to witness how far you've taken this journey and how many far-reaching tentacles just this one mission is actually helping to solve. So let's start with a little bit of backstory. So over our time together, people are going to get to know who you are, what problem you're solving, and how you came to do it. So tell us a little bit about gold mining in general, mercury. Imagine somebody knows nothing about mercury and mining.
Perfect. Really great, Stephanie. So yeah, back in 2004, I ran across a website called No Dirty Gold. And it was shocking to me. I mean, I kind of on some level knew that mining is not the cleanest activity, but being a jeweler, goldsmith, it was easy to kind of slough it off. It was like, okay, that's not the best, but there's problems everywhere in the world. But then it occurred to me when I really got into it on this website and found out how nasty it was, the amount of mercury pollution, the amount of overburden, tons and tons, hundreds of tons of rock and dirt are moved every time to get an ounce of gold. It was shocking. And I said, I can't make jewelry. I cannot continue to make jewelry if, in fact, unless I could make some sort of significant difference in the impact of mining practices, unless I could be a contribution at the same time I was using these metals and gems, then I couldn't do it. And I had a realization one morning, fly fishing in a coastal stream, that it just, I live in Oregon, and it's it's beautiful. And I'm surrounded by incredible nature. And I can't do this.
Yeah, I feel you. I mean, how many times people have that feeling and just either, like you said, swipe it under the carpet or just stop and move on to the next thing, right? But you decided to do something about it.
Yes, I approached our refiner who we were buying our gold from, and Hoover and Strong in Richmond, Virginia, and said, would you keep for me separate gold that has been reprocessed? So recycled gold, reclaimed, can you sell that to me purified as non-environmentally impacting gold at this point? And they said, sure, we'll do that. We'll be happy to do that. And so we launched this matter of Eco Gold, and Eco Gold it really was a hit immediately. A number of publications, actually 13 consumer-facing press articles came out on Eco Gold as distinct from newly mined gold. And it made a tremendous difference in our business. And I think it raised awareness in the world that we were recycling gold and really pointing that out. And yet I knew immediately that that wasn't the answer. Recycling doesn't really solve the problem because the mining continues just the way it is. So I started looking for, how do I find the best gold in the world that we can use, that we can highlight, that we can encourage, tell their story. So I began working with a mine in the Yukon who was doing an exquisite job. They were mining gold as responsibly as it could be done, in such a way that the provincial government, the First Nations, everyone was saying, this is amazing. We love this. And they were stripping away the overburden, getting down to the gold layer, processing it, putting everything back. And things were growing. Animals were coming back. It was just an incredible system, but they couldn't continue it. They went bankrupt in 2008. And so we lost that avenue. But so I kept looking, and I heard about a mine in Colombia, a community that was mining really responsibly. So I ordered their gold, bought it, and started telling that story. Shortly thereafter, traveled to Colombia and visited this community, which was exquisite. And they were using traditional methods. They're Afro-Colombian descendants of the conquistadors. And they would mine so carefully, caring about their land. As they removed the rocks and the soil, they would sequester it. They would use the rocks to build terraces. So every area that they mined, they would terrace that and backfill it with the soil that was the tailings from their mining, and would grow crops on that land. 3 years would have a full banana plantation. And just really inspiring to see. During this time, I was invited to join the board of directors of the Alliance for Responsible Mining based in Colombia. And I've served on that board for now 11 years. And during this time became really deeply appreciative and committed to the quality of life of the miners who are at the very bottom of the food chain. And basically, they are the people who, for lack of other means, have to kind of dig in the earth and get gold out by whatever means they can. And it's so often a backbreaking, dangerous, and toxic relationship with their work, because in order to be relatively efficient, they have to use mercury. Mercury is a way that they can capture more of the gold than they would be able to without it, but it's still less than 50% efficient. But by taking the concentrates that they can aggregate, that is a heavy mineral, they add mercury to that, rub it together, work it all into that.
With their bare hands?
With their bare hands. They I mean, there's just really no awareness of protective devices.
Yeah.
It is for them, it's a way to eat. And they often need to sell their gold every day in order to eat and survive and put clothes on their kids. And so they work this mercury into the gold, which forms and then an amalgam. Gold and mercury have this great attraction to each other. It's a physical bond. And everything else gets washed away. But the gold and the mercury form a kind of a putty-like amalgam that in order to separate the mercury, they heat it to evaporate the mercury from the gold, leaving behind this sponge of gold, kind of really porous as the mercury has evaporated. But then that mercury goes into the atmosphere, the water supply, their clothes, their food, their communities. It is an increasing problem in the world as more and more people turn to gold mining, and they don't have the means to bring in this infrastructure of technology and other safer means of mining. So it's just really a tragedy that about 20 million people in the world have to use mercury.
Wow.
All around the world. And basically the global south, gold exists around the world, but in many other cases, they have enough infrastructure that they don't need to use mercury. But for these 20 million people, they do. And 100 million people depend on them. And in that process, inadvertently, they release 12,000 pounds of toxic mercury into the environment every day. And it is nearly permanent. I mean, it can last for decades or centuries. You still can't eat fish from the bay, the region of California where the gold rush was. It's just such a long-lasting neurotoxin that there must be a better way.
Are the miners aware that the mercury is poisoning their water? Their fish are dying. What's happening in their communities?
They are, I would say, for the most part. Many aren't. And in many cases, they turn a blind eye to, hey, there's just nothing else they can do. So they use it because that is their means of living. And so even though they're peripherally aware, and some of them will take some precautionary measures, but it's slow and it's really difficult to define what is mercury poisoning and what isn't. So it can affect people anyway neurologically. And it is the people most susceptible are developing neurological systems, embryos and children and mothers who are potential for giving birth or carrying a child. They are the ones that are the most susceptible, these developing nervous systems. And so the results often don't show up in a way that is like you can't earmark it and say, that's mercury poisoning. I mean, it can show up in terms of slurred speech, problematic memory, low IQ, balance, all sorts of internal kidneys, brain functions. It's lungs. It impacts virtually everything in our systems, in any system neurologically. So it's a nasty toxin that we've felt like, I mean, it's just occurred to me that there must be better ways, that we don't have to tolerate them having to make a living using this toxin.
Yeah. So it's so interesting. I've had a lot of guests on the show where they're approaching something that touches the issue of mercury mining. I have had Paul Rosalie of Jungle Keepers, who is always confronting illegal mining and mercury poisoning in the Amazon basin in Peru. And I've had just so many people who are working on climate, environment, water, all the different issues, right? Plastic. And you've double clicked and gone so deep into, okay, this. And so it's really awesome to hear, because I don't know that everybody really understands, we might wear gold. Where did it come from? And it's always that question of who had to move or die so we could have this, and I want to hear for you, after you were inspired and you're like, okay, I need to find a solution. What were the steps that you took? Take us back to that beginning where you're like, okay, I have to do something more.
Great. Yeah. So So I had the immense privilege of living for 5 years when I was between 6 and 11 years old in the foothills of the Himalayas in North India. And it was an amazing environment to be a boy. It was like monkeys and tigers and panthers and beetles and incredible butterflies. And it was just phenomenal. And that appreciation, that being moved by the incredible world that we live in, the people, the Garhwali people who live in that region are animists, and they celebrate life, and they relate to kind of fairies, and it's just like they love their nature, their world, and as poor as can be, as poor as you'll ever encounter, but generous of spirit, so appreciative and friendly and happy and dancing. And, it's like, it was like when I came back to the US at 11 years old, I was shocked and I did not want to stay. My parents were medical missionaries, and we were going to go back. My dad took another position as a physician, and we never returned until some years later when I took my family back. But the contrast, I guess it occurred for me, like, this is the way life can be and should be in many ways: happy, free, generous, playful, beautiful, diverse. So making jewelry and the realization that the way we're doing it doesn't work and there has to be something done. So over the years, I considered what can be done. What can I do? This recycle, this trying to find the best possible gold that we could buy and sell and tell those miners stories. I remember one occasion, an opportunity. I went to a little community called Layanada in southwest Colombia, up about also around 7,000 feet elevation. And they're cooperative miners, and they had been mining there for decades, not for centuries, but they loved that land and they did not use mercury. They were very careful about their process. And for me, it was inspiring to use their gold and to tell their story that it was really great gold. So I traveled there and met with this cooperative, the directors of this cooperative, and they said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "I'm here because I want to tell your story, because you are leading, you are the model for the world in terms of gold mining, that the world can learn from you. And I really want to sell your gold and tell your story." And the leader of the director of the board, I guess, he stood up and was quiet for a moment. And he said, we never really expected that anyone would tell our story. And we've been mining the way we have because we care about our community. We care about nature. We want to do it right. And we're honored that you are here. So they said, let's eat empanadas and drink coffee. And they brought them in. It was just one of those most special moments of my life, to be in that place and to be able to have kind of this commitment, start to maybe, I could feel the repercussions, the benefits of it. And so the next year, in fact, they were Alliance for Responsible Mining, Fairmined certified. That following year, the president of Colombia received the Nobel Peace Prize, and they made that Peace Prize out of that community's gold, two mine communities' gold. And one of those miners went to Stockholm, I think, and received that award. So all of a sudden they were known worldwide. And it was just so exciting to know that the world is moving in that direction. But for me, still, mercury has been an issue that has been pretty challenging. How do we address this potent neurotoxin that millions of people rely on? And I was listening to one of Peter Diamandis's podcasts, and many people will know already, Peter Diamandis is the founder of the X Prize Foundation and visionary futurist entrepreneur. But he's and very insightful. And he asked a question. He said, if you could impact 1 billion people's lives in the next 5 years, what would you do? And it stunned me. I had never let myself consider that depth of a question before. And almost immediately it came to me, well, we'll just solve this issue of mercury. We'll find a way, because obviously we have the technology to do virtually anything, and we have the funding. It's amazing funds that are flowing now. And what we need really is just the will. So I said, I'm doing that. I took that on and started Mercury Free Mining in 2017. Went public, went through the Hero X platform that also is a part of, I think, the X Prize Foundation's kind of a branch of that, and announced that Mercury Free Mining, was going to raise $1 million prize to fund the most effective technology that could be discovered. And we launched into that. And so it was like, I don't know where to go from here. I've been a bench jeweler, but there's something that can happen just out of one's commitment, one's vision, and just sharing that possibility.
Toby, you just mentioned that there's a lot of money flowing. And so what were you talking about? Money flowing where?
Okay, look, so the things are getting built. Entrepreneurs are achieving amazing things. So Peter, for example, he said he was raising $10 million to get the first manned flight into space in the single low Earth orbit twice in 2 weeks in the same vehicle, spaceship. So rocket. So he raised, after 10 years, he raised this $10 million prize, and by Ansari, the Ansari family, and it became the Ansari X Prize, and they accomplished that feat of getting 3 people into low Earth orbit in the same vehicle twice. 2 weeks, and that then immediately was purchased by Richard Branson. When that ship landed, he said, "Okay, I'm in for this. I wouldn't want to buy this technology because I can see a future here." So it's that kind of thing, that the ability to, well, we all know it's exploding in terms of what's happening with AI, with material science, with there's health, longevity, genetics. It's, to map the human genome and to have it be now getting incredibly inexpensive. I don't know if they're at $100 yet, but it's, just phenomenal that we can do that. So we have the ability technologically to accomplish virtually anything that we say. I know growing human parts now, printing them, body parts that are actually functional.
All right, don't get me started on half these things, because most of the things that you're mentioning are like above and beyond, including AI, right? We're talking about getting a spaceship into lower orbit or AI. Most of these things are so after solving mercury in water and the this proliferation of toxic mercury. And it's like, yeah, let's get $10 billion over here. But wait, we haven't even solved the issues right here, which if we can do that, why can't we start here?
Exactly.
So
that's my thinking as well. So I had a very successful jewelry company that had been, my own brand, Toby Pomeroy brand. But when I started to get into it, and really all of the avenues, all of the people that I needed to speak with and ways to approach this, I said, I can't make jewelry now. I mean, this is my life. This is what I'm doing. So I took that on really fully and sold my business, and have been then devoted since we formed a nonprofit, really at your inspiring me to actually form a nonprofit out of it. In 2019, we got our 501c3 rating and have been, we put together an extraordinary board, primarily within the jewelry industry, and began building this nonprofit with a focus on, we can do this. And we need fundamentally our access to raising the funds, raising awareness, and taking on this issue I saw it as being best through the jewelry industry. So we've got an industry that is a lot of committed, concerned people, and a fair amount of backing in terms of financial means, and certainly a direct affiliation with gold and mining and how all that is done. I mean, the jewelry industry buys more than half the world's gold, and 20% of all of the world's gold is mined by artisanal and small scale gold miners who use mercury. And so the jewelry industry is 20% of our gold has been mined by mercury. And it's something that we have been, I would say, basically unaware of. I mean, and maybe in some ways conveniently unaware, but that it is when I started telling the industry about this issue, virtually no one knew. It was almost completely unknown that mercury was in our gold supply chain. And it still is. There are, I don't know what I would say, maybe we are at 50% awareness in the industry, but still a lot don't know. So it has seemed to be kind of a natural fit that we can, as an industry, we can take this on and accomplish amazing things, both from the fact of alleviating mercury, but at the same time supporting miners and benefiting our companies, our industry, by doing the right thing, by being known for a stand-up industry that's courageous, that says, hey, I know the world doesn't know this yet, but we are taking on this issue of mercury, this kind of black eye in our supply chain. We know that blood diamonds has been a huge issue and became really dramatically, dramatized. And so the world became aware of it, and that we have probably a far bigger issue, in fact, by the global impact of mercury, that we could declare ourselves as an industry and say, we're taking this on. So I've been talking about that for the last, whatever it's been now, 6 years, Stephanie, and that we're getting some traction. The Gemological Institute of America has funded us in one of our scientists, our mining engineers, to analyze 5 different processors that are clean, that are efficient, that have a potential for helping small scale miners to mine without the use of mercury. So over the last 2 years, we actually got the grants in 2021. So we began processing these ores from 2 mines in the Andes, about 15,000 feet, to determine which of these processors could be the most effective. And the analysis of those brought us to one processor, which clearly was, in fact, the lab results show that it can capture more gold than the miners are able to when they use mercury. Very inexpensive, portable, lightweight, highly efficient in terms of virtually no carbon footprint.
Wow.
Reasonably low cost at $3,500 right now. So, we've made some amazing progress, and we still don't have funding. We're a small organization, so we may not fit for all of the grants that are out there, but I think there certainly are opportunities. There's a lot of interest in just really improving this whole matter of mercury and finding alternatives for the miners.
Wow. Yeah. For a small organization, you really have done and are doing a lot. And you're at a solution point. So tell us about, so $3,500, that could be a lot for somebody in, some rural village who's mining to eat and is not aware of the damage that they're causing to their water system and the air and pollute themselves, right? So how do you suppose scaling this technology and making sure that everyone has access to it? What is your vision for that?
First of all, I appreciate the question. And we don't know that the gold drop that's the name of the processor, is is going to be an answer for a lot of people. We suspect it will. We have to do our next stage in the field trials now to determine exactly, precisely, statistically, how much better that it is for the miners to use than their traditional processing. And secondarily, but no, probably primarily, will the miners use it? Because that has been a historical issue where there are solutions that miners can use that they want, for one reason or another, they don't. And I would say in most cases, it's because it's not sufficiently, doesn't allow them sufficiently greater profits to use it. It would have to be something to break away from using mercury. Will have to be a significant breakthrough for them. Otherwise, they'll just keep doing what's familiar, even knowing that it's not safe, that it's toxic. And
right. And there are no like regulations. Like there's no one regulating a rural community, a rural river in the mountains in Colombia or Peru, right? So there's no way to really police until after the fact.
I mean, there are regulations and there are policies and laws, but it's, as you say, difficult to police. It is something that occasionally the police will come in and bust up operations. There's a lot of illegal mining happening, and it's basically mafia run and often conflated with artisanal small scale mining because they are small operations, but they're very distinct. On the one hand, you have miners who are wanting to feed their families and take care of the environment and do the best they can. On the others, it's just rape, pillage, and burn. And these money at whatever the cost may be, will come in, and often internationally funded groups that will bring in heavy equipment and as much mercury as they can pour on it.
I have a question. If you had $500,000, $500,000 or $1 million that was gifted to your organization, I vote for one thing, but I'd love to hear what you would do with it. I would vote also that there's also this consumer education, right? There's this huge opportunity. You've been really amazing at educating the industry, right? Industry leaders and the jewelry industry. And yet there's the whole consumers base that when the whole blood diamond issue came out, it was the consumers who actually nudged the industry to take action, right? Because I'm not buying it unless it's certified, unless whatever. So there's that opportunity. Love to hear you speak to that. And also, if you had access to unlimited funds, what would you do next?
Well, so if I had access to unlimited funds, I think the best thing that we could do right now is to start to make a real substantive difference on the ground and to be able to tell those miners' stories and the communities in which they work, what the benefits are of being able to mine more effectively, cleanly, what that's like for them in terms of their sense of pride, their health, although that's a long-term thing that is difficult to track. And there's not a lot of metrics behind that right now as a baseline that we could compare. But I think in many ways, like La Llanada, where they're doing it right, the world starts to know we can develop a mercury-free, responsibly sourced gold supply chain. That could become the focus. Like brands would start to carry it. And when the customers are saying, that's the gold we want, then the industry will follow. That's one way to go about it. But I think in any case, we need to have on the ground results that we can demonstrate, the stories that we can tell. I see this as something that is just a huge opportunity for the jewelry industry to really define its future, to say who we are.
If you had all the money and all the resources in the world, what would you do? So your next steps would be to continue to transform the industry, transform the consumer desire, right? And demand. And then does any part of this also involve sort of funding the devices? Did I say that right? The processors?
Yes, for sure. So the communities who could benefit, we just really need to have engineers visit these communities. We just had Kalen Barand. Has been with us for a number of years now, University of Arizona, who took the gold drop up to the two mines in Peru that we had originally gotten the ore samples from. And they bought one of the gold drops and they're using it and they're building it into their system. But as much as we can have that happen, where we've got people who are trained in mining, who can help them out in a lot of ways. One of the things he did while he was there was he's showing them how to use fluxes, how to take that raw gold that they collect and melting it efficiently so they get the gold out of it. And it's simple, low cost, but that kind of thing, there are millions of people who are not educated in that way. So along with taking mercury-free processors into communities, educating them on it, helping them understand and adapt to it, supporting them over time so they're really efficient at their recovery and not tempted to go back to using mercury because it's familiar, it's easy, it's cheap. That is something that it's not just going to be a simple, let's send them a bunch of processors and they'll keep using them, because that has proven to be the case. So we need to, funding like that would be amazing, to have a sufficient number of educators, trainers, engineers to be able to demonstrate these processors and help them in other ways that would have them be more efficient while eliminating mercury. $500,000, $1 million, it would be a huge benefit, and it would be a tremendous start. But you think about 20 million people all around the world, from Philippines, Indonesia, China, India, not so much India, but in Africa, huge, South America, Central America, it is a major issue. So, and that's really where most of the pollution is coming from. But I think having I'll come back to the industry, but it's just an amazing story we can all tell, having it be something that we are taking on an issue that is solvable. We've demonstrated time and again that anything that we want to solve, we can.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Toby. And if everyone began to follow in your footsteps, it's non-negotiable that what we do to move forward is circular, it's one with nature. And that is just such an intellectual exercise until it becomes a felt experience. And so thank you for the work that you're doing and for informing and educating us, our audience. And, I'd love to hear if there was anything I missed that you want to share. Yeah. Is there any other piece that you want to share before we spread this to the hearts of millions?
Yes. I think it's way bigger than just mercury. And we are off track. We have gotten our priorities mixed up. As long as we focus on being increasingly profitable and acquiring more and more stuff, there is no sustainability. That we need to, I'd say the biggest thing that's missing is compassion, and it's like treasuring people, treasuring the planet, diversity. Without that, it doesn't look like it's going to turn out well. So I think that's probably, if there were anything that I could do, it would be to elevate a sense of reverence for all of it, for everything around us, and stop and really appreciate what we have. We're squandering it. And I think this is our opportunity. And so that's what inspires me about the possibility of working with people who are passionate, who are committed, who do have a sense of reverence about their own lives and others' lives. It's a privilege. And I am delighted to be on this path with you and your listeners, and so many people in the world, that we're onto something. And I think it just does take speaking up and acting consistent with that sense of reverence.
I love that you shared that, Toby. It's interesting because, I've just what's still sitting in my mind is what you were talking about, how the X Prize, there was this mission to raise funds to create, a spaceship. There's the funds to create things that are so kind of laughable, not no disrespect, but some things that are just laughable in the big picture of who we are and what we're really here to do. And I'm actually reading a great book, Donut Economics. I don't know if you've read that book. It's a really beautiful book.
I know of it.
Okay, Kate Raworth. And it's really it's just like flipping the whole economic system on its head, saying this is just a story we made up. This is the past. It's not the future story. And if there's a story that we tell about this beautiful, stunning, like element that comes out of the ground, then what would that story look like? And what if it's not a supply and demand story? What is it? And right, if that person didn't need to, the demand for food meet a supply of this thing that's right there, and here's this tool, Mercury, to help me get it fast so that I could feed my family. Like if that wasn't the story, what would it be?
Yes, and I think it could be, Stephanie, something akin to this noble metal, this beautiful, resilient, forever metal can represent, if we approach it that way, love, reverence, commitment, compassion. And by approaching our obtaining and working with gold and in the sales of it, if you will, that I think that story can be built in if we incorporate that approach. If we bring that approach to it, it's a story that's could be really transformative for not only our industry, but could kind of be leading the way in the world in terms of, hey, this element, they are mining, they are processing, they are caring for the environment in that whole process in a way that just embodies the sense of reverence and commitment and love and purpose, really.
Yeah, it's an ancient intelligence, right? And it's still alive in you. It's still alive in me. It's alive in everybody. It might be dormant and sleeping. So you're waking it up in folks. I'm holding this space so we can wake it up in folks. It's the similar thing like iron. I just was reading that someone in Africa, they used to build these totally sustainable ironworks. Like they would create steel. And this was like way before Europeans invented the iron smelter or whatever it is that makes steel. And, so if we go back and look at ancient civilizations and how did they have gold? How did they process gold, right? There's so much intelligence for us. And we're just getting a little irresponsible as, the younger siblings on the planet. Though I just wanted to say, in that honoring of this noble metal, you are like creating the literal gold standard, where every other industry has a figurative gold standard. You are the literal gold standard, right?
Yes.
So, yeah.
And more, it's happening. People are getting behind. Yes, we can do this responsibly. We just had a conference in New York, the initiatives in art and culture, and World Gold Council was there. Artisanal Gold Council was there, and refiners, Hoover and Strong and Betts Refinery, and everybody knows this is the future. So how do we build this future? It's critical that we do. And so I do see a rising of voices and a harmony starting to happen that is really fulfilling and wonderful to be a part of, to really feel developing.
Amazing. So if there's anything you could ask for right now, whatever, I know that you're the visionary in this organization. So what, if you could have anything that you needed right now, what would it be?
I loved your proposal of your question about $500,000 would be amazing, right? and I think the time is right to bring some programs on in the ground. We have this technology that we know works well. It probably won't work in all areas with all gold ore types, but it is something that we can point to that may be a significant breakthrough for millions of people. I was saying that this processor it weighs about 60 pounds, can be carried anywhere. It's recirculating water supply. It runs on a solar panel and a small battery, and it will work all day long. And with increased efficiencies, we just need to demonstrate that efficiency is the degree to which it is. We want to document that scientifically, and then start to get it out there. We can scale this, and the more awareness that there is, the more we can bring these processors or other processors into communities where they can make that kind of difference. But I think elevating the awareness is really important. Mm-hmm. So that key part in knowledge will allow the funding to flow more, the support and the demand for it, both from the customer side and the industry side, for traceability, for responsible sourcing, and particularly the freedom from mercury.
Beautiful. Well, it is my intention that this platform does provide some support in that process and that, in the spreading of the word. So we hope that you are listening and sharing this and making sure that we get Toby's voice and this mission out, because it is a tipping point and you are at the tipping point. This could really, really change a lot of lives. And I'm really grateful for you and your work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for hosting. Thank you for helping me tell this story and for all you do.
Thank you, Toby.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Catalyst Talks. Stay tuned for what's up next, and please subscribe to our podcast and rate us wherever you listen. You'll find these all at catalysttalks.com. Join the conversation on social media, and if you'd like to reach out, please send me, Stephanie, a private message through stephanietrager.com. Your attention means the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you.